This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is 2019's La Casa. On the heading for the movie poster for La Casa is Inspirada en hechos reales, which is to say, based on a true story, which is also to say that that's going to be utter nonsense. Any movie that has that anywhere associated with it is, at best, loosely based upon a true story. An artistic license is probably going to take over 99.9% of the movie. It tends to be based on a real story in the loosest of sense, even more so when you're talking about horror movies. And I suspect this one is no different. And the movie is supposedly based upon a real haunted house in Chile, La Antigua Casona de Quinta Normal. And the thing is, the movie starts very promisingly with old news clips about the house and the weird events surrounding it. So it lays its groundwork quite well, and it's very effective, at least initially. Problem is that we come to meet Officer Arriagada very soon, and the story starts to become his story. And the haunted house, which, once again, is supposedly a real thing, becomes secondary to his story. It's not a bad movie by any stretch, but the thing is, in watching this movie, which I should mention has parts that are very much of a found footage type nature, they're not, but they feel like it, as well as parts that feel like a more traditional haunted house story. I've come to understand why you have movies like this that tend to revolve around vapid teenagers or people who we don't know much information about. We come to learn quite a bit about Officer Arriagada, and he's an interesting character. The problem is, the story becomes no longer about the house. The house is a character in the story, but the house is also secondary to what's going on with Officer Arriagada. It's the strangest thing. Traditionally, with these type of movies, you want well fleshed out characters, and Officer Arriagada is very fleshed out. But the problem is, as I said, the movie is called La Casa, which is the house, not Officer Arriagada. So it's an odd way of saying the better drawn nature of the character actually distracts from the movie. And there's another thing. If you're at all familiar with Chilean history, and I am not really, I have a grasp of it, but not much, admittedly. In the 1970s, an American-backed coup happened, which is to say, we helped depose their president at the time, Salvador Allende. And Officer Arriagada's story revolves around that event, or at least I assume it does. The story refers to, earlier on, empty houses, a lot of empty structures, I should say, appearing in the 70s and 80s. The coup happened in 1973. And so it made me wonder if the political milieu was relevant to the story. It doesn't deal with it at all, which is odd, and I think it should. About halfway through the movie, when Officer Arriagada has seen these very strange visions, he called his police station, and they said that they couldn't send help because they were maintaining the barricades. Now keep in mind, the coup happened in 1973, though there was likely build-up before the event. So it seems to me that this movie is directly referencing the American overthrow of Salvador Allende in Chile. Though why the movie didn't just say that is very odd to me. The movie is very much a one-man show. Officer Allende is the only person you see for most of the movie. There are other characters, but those tend to be more like specters and ghosts and that type of thing. In some ways, this movie is very much inspired by the work of James Wan, particularly the Insidious movies. In any case, it's a good movie. It's an interesting movie. But the thing is, by it not going deeper into the events that inspired it, it comes off kind of weaker for it, I hate to say. And that's a problem, because nothing that the movie does is novel by any stretch of the imagination. That being said, La Casa is better than most movies you see of this nature, which is to say paranormal haunted house type movies. Though if it had went more boldly into the history behind many of the events in this movie, I think it could have been much better. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.